Swapping heads is a massive part of the photo manipulator's workflow, as well as client work such as book cover design. Quite often you'll have the perfect costume, but the CG or photo stock face just doesn't quite work for the project. In this tutorial, I'll be showing you the basics of performing head swaps in Photoshop and giving you some tips plus mistakes to avoid. Hey guys, welcome to the video. My name is Dean Samid, I'm a pro horror artist from the UK and you're tuned into photomanipulation.com. If you're new here, welcome. We're not your typical Photoshop channel, we specialise in photo manipulation, digital art and advanced Photoshop techniques. If that sounds like your kind of thing, be sure to like and subscribe as we put out new videos Monday to Friday. It's free, easy and really supports the channel. Let's roll the video, enjoy. So the process that I'm showing you today is something that I had to go through all the time with book cover work. The client would usually have a very specific request of what the character looks like, and finding the correct costume in photo stock is almost impossible. That's why I started the Neo stock photography website, but quite often these days people are using CG elements. Now I like some of the costumes, but I always dislike the faces. No matter how good they are, they just cannot compete with photo stock faces in my opinion. So I want to create a cool pirate composite. I really like this costume, but the face to me just looks fake. I'd really like to switch that out for a photo stock face. Now the image that I have here is from our pirate rogue set starring Carlos. This one's from Neo stock, and I'd like to take Carlos's face and add that to this pirate costume here. Now before I go ahead and do that, I'm just going to show you a bit of the workflow that I'd usually do. So if I'm not using a Neo stock asset, usually I'd be on a site such as Adobe Stock. So here is the gallery for the Carlos pirate rogue set. The first thing you'd have to take into consideration is the angle of the source image. So I picked an easy one today because we are covering the basics of head swaps in Photoshop. Now what you can do if you're using stock credits on a micro stock site is to do a thing called comps, and usually on Adobe Stock or the other micro stock sites you can get a low resolution version of the image and cut it out and put it in place just to test. So just for argument's sake, let's just say this is a low resolution image. The head is in the correct position. The chin is tilted a bit more on this one than the original. His chin is upwards. But if, say for example, this is a low resolution version of the stock image, you could just grab the lasso, get a rough cut of the head like this. So I'm just very rough. This isn't the final thing. This is just to see whether the head will work, because you might have to cycle through a couple of heads. Now when I was preparing this tutorial, I actually went through this exact process to see which head would work for the demo. So I've got that head there. I'm gonna get the scaling right and use the eyes as reference. The chin is tilted a bit, hit enter, and then I say okay, that one works. I then can go on to Adobe Stock and download the full res instead of wasting loads of credits. So we've done the comp to make sure that the angle of the head is correct, and that's a really important part of the process. You don't want to be using wasting loads of your stock credits and not getting the right image. So I don't need this whole thing, I only need that. I'm going to copy that and bring this into the working document. Command V to paste. Okay, the process that I'm going to use, I'm going to do this in real time because it's not a massive complicated thing to cut out. So my preferred method for chopping things out is to use selection layers. Shift Command and N, create a new layer. I'll call this one solid. Shift Command N to create a new layer. I'll call that hair. I'm using a Mac, but if you're on a PC, just replace Command with Control anytime I use those shortcuts. Okay, so we're on the solid layer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a solid path. I'm going to fill that with white on its own layer, and then I know everything on that path is for the solid area, and then I like to do a separate one for the hair, and I'm going to show you the whole process in real time. There's a dedicated tutorial for this. I'll put it in the description, but we can go in real time today. Sometimes you'll want to take the neck, sometimes you'll only want to take the head. Where I did the comp version before, I knew that just the beard line, the hair, the hat and the head will be fine. So that's what I'll be cutting out right now. So when I'm doing this solid mask, the only thing that I want to get is the areas that I know are 100% definitely solid. So that will be the head. So you notice I'm not grabbing the hair because the hair will be its own selection layer. And it's a unique way of working, but I like it because I like to have those selections visible within the layer stack as opposed to being alpha channels or loaded selections or anything like that. So I'm just gonna zip around this hat and this solid area right now with the pencil. Okay, so we're at the end of the path now. I'm just going to complete that path by clicking on the first anchor point, and then that is a finalized path. The solid layer is active. I'm just going to right click there and go fill path, and I'm going to use white. So that's that done. The next thing we do is go to the hair layer. I just hit that for the moment, and for the hair I'm using an older version of Photoshop. If you're on a newer version, to get to refine edge, you just hold down shift and click select a mask, because that's what we'll be using after we've created this hair selection layer. So with the freehand lasso, I'm just gonna very rough, and I'm using a mouse for this, nothing fancy. I'm using a mouse to create a lasso selection around the definitive strands. I don't need all of the tiny strands, just the strands that are a bit more solid. To add to the selection, I hold down shift. To remove from the selection, I hold down alt. So I hold down shift and I can add to that selection. You need a fairly steady hand with this, but most compositing jobs won't be as tricky as Carlos's hair here. So I'm just going to go round, grab all these bits. I'm using shift to add, using alt, so I hold down alt to take away that gap there. I'm going round. I want to get these hair bits that are going over the shoulder. Again, as with all these separate techniques in these videos, we have individual tutorials that outline these processes in depth. So I've done a number of hair tutorials. I'll make sure I include that in the description below if you want to learn more about working with hair. Okay, so these straggly strands, we're just getting them. There's a bit more hair than I anticipated for this one, but it's okay, we'll get there. Once I demonstrate this side, I'll time lapse the other side so we can move through this at a fast clip. So nearly done. I don't need to do anything with the beard there because it's connecting with the hair. I'll get this area here where the hair is coming down, and this will be there'll be a separate selection that we do for the hair. We get into the beard now. I'm just going to go around here in a jagged manner. We'll get this gruffy bit at the bottom. When I get to the other side, what I'll do is I'll time lapse the right side of the hair, because you've already seen me do that once and you get the general idea. With this lasso, again, hold down shift and add to the selection. Okay, that's the beard done. Like I said before, it does not have to be perfect, just a generalized outline. Now I'm going to zip through and get the second right side of the hair done. Okay, so I've got a rough selection outline of the hair, and what we're going to do is we're going to fill this with white, and you'll notice that these strands have come down here over the shoulders. Let's just hope that that works all right. The shortcut that I use to fill that selection on the hair layer is Alt and Delete. Really fast, really easy way to fill. So that was the selection filled using the freehand lasso tool. Okay, what we're now going to do is hold down Command and click on the hair icon. And we're going to go refine edge. And remember what I said, if you're on a newer version of Photoshop, most of you will be, you can access this menu by holding down shift and clicking on select and mask. Okay, so we're going to make sure that the pirate head is selected. We're going to go refine edge, and we're just going to bump that radius up. And you see there's some fringe in there, but we'll be able to deal with that. That'll be fine. The strands going down by the chest is not great, but for the purpose of the demo, it'll work. I don't normally mess with the other settings too much when I do refine edge. I normally like to handle things manually. I'm just going to go OK there, and the output was to selection, and then I'm going to go shift, command and click to add the solid selection that we made earlier with the pen tool to that hair selection that the refine edge just did. So I'm going to go command and J, and that will copy and paste that selection onto the layer above. Now this is the way that I like to cut figures out. You don't have to use this same method for this head swap process. It's whatever you feel comfortable with for removing faces alongside hair or soft areas. So that's the head cut out. I'm just going to call that original pirate head, just so we know what's going on. A bit of housekeeping. And then I'm going to duplicate that by going command and J, and because I know I'll have to scale this, so I'm going to call this scaled pirate head, just so I can keep track of things. I'm using the space bar to pan the screen. Hold down space, it changes to a hand icon, and I'm going to hit V for move tool, and I'm going to take the Carlos pirate head and I'm going to put it over the original. Now a trick that I often use is pulling the opacity down. A good point of reference is to use the eyes for the scaling. It works very well. So I'm just going to pull that opacity down on the layer stack, and I'm going to use the eyes as reference. Now as I said before, Carlos's head was leaning forward a bit, and the source model is the head is tilting up a bit. So I don't want to match the eyes exactly, as Carlos would have a really long neck. I'm going to bring it down a touch, because in the original photo his head was tilted, and we'll just go back to that. His head is a bit more of a sullen pose as opposed to a proud chin up pose. So let's have a look at that. Just going to move that. Now then, there's a problem there with the scaling, so that will happen from time to time. What I want to do is just make sure the scale is correct. I've got the opacity turned down, get the eyes roughly right, hit enter and push that up to 100. Now the scaling is a bit better. I'm using command and T to transform that. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to bring that chin down a bit. Okay, we're looking good. That will do. That will do for the demo. Right, we have some issues with the hair. That annoys me quite a bit. We'll deal with that in a minute. But what we need to do now is get rid of the original elements that are on this pirate head here. So the scaled head is there. We want to keep the neck. We want to keep the rim of this jacket thing. But we want to get rid of the hair, the existing hair and the existing hat. So I like to use pen tool because it's precise. I'm just going to get up to that neckline there, and I'm going to come round, remove these elements because these need to be gone. Just come out there a bit, get this path to go all the way around because this is what I want to get rid of. Then add a layer mask to that CG pirate stock. Right click on that path, go fill path, and because it's a layer mask, we fill it with black, and that will remove As you can see, the layer mask active there. Command and click that, you can see that in place. Now let's put the scaled pirate head back. We're looking good. We're not fully there yet, but we have a good start. Okay, so we have the pirate stock there. It's not looking too bad. I'm going to deal with some of this fringing on the hair. We don't need it for the demo, but it will just annoy me otherwise seeing that. So I'm going to create a new layer, Shift, Command and N, and I'm going to add a clipping mask. Hold down Alt and click between those two layers, and that will restrict whatever's happening on this layer to the pixels below. I select the clone stamp tool and then hold down Alt, grab an area of hair, and I can paint there and just remove some of those outer fringing elements. I don't need to do loads. Instead of using a solid color, the hair will add a texture. The white behind there, is it a major problem? Let's just try this. So, okay, we got the flow down low. We got the flow at 29%, so it's not going to be 100%. So let's just do that just a little bit. We'll zoom out, see how it looks. Okay, not bad. That softened up the whites before, and with things like this, it's dependent on how dark that background is. If it's dark, you're going to see it more. I'm just going to show you a quick demo now. And sometimes if it's lighter, you'll see it more. It's dependent on the model's hair color. Okay, so the face is looking good. This was a nice easy one because both models and the body itself were facing directly forward. So this will be the easiest head swap process that you'll be going through. Now you'll notice that there is a disparity between the original model skin tone and Carlos's skin tone, and we need these to match. You have to make a decision. The question is, do you want the face skin tone to match the body, or do you want the body skin tone to match the face? In this instance, I'm going to get the body skin tone to match Carlos's face. So I'm just going to group all of them into a group, their head. The way that I did that, I'll just step backwards and show you that. I clicked on the top layer that I wanted to include in the group, hold down Shift, click on the bottom layer that I wanted to include in the group, and then Command and G just to put all of that stuff in one group, nice and organized. That's the way that I like to do things. Okay, so when I do the color adjustments to match this skin tone with Carlos's face, I want it only to cover the skin. I don't want the body to be amended. So I'm going to create a selection layer as I usually do. New layer, Shift, Command and N, and then I've named that skin mask. Again, you guys know I love the pen tool. I am going to do the pen tool and go around and create a selection, a filled path, and it's only going to cover the skin because I just want to create a selection on the skin and have that recolored using an adjustment layer. So I'm going to zip around now, do this. As I was saying before, with the cutting out of the head element or cutting out of the body element, you can use your own process. That isn't the main purpose of this tutorial, so don't get worried if you don't like the way that I do things. It's just my preferred method and it's easiest for me to demo. Okay, I'm going to grab these hands now. We'll zip forward with a bit of time-lapse magic. Okay, so a path has been created around the skin areas. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 separate paths. I have the skin mask layer active. I'm going to right click, go fill path. We're going to use white on that. Today of all days, my mouse is playing up. So you'll notice that the mask goes outside of the CG stock element, but that shouldn't be a problem for now. I can just go like that on the layer mask there, click on the skin mask and select inverse, Shift, Command and I, and go delete. Okay, so the skin mask is covering those skin elements. Now it's a case of holding down Command, clicking that layer icon, and then selecting an adjustment layer. Now there's lots of different ways for changing the tone of skin. My preferred method for 8 out of 10 coloring tasks is selective color. So the way I accessed that, I went down to adjustment layers, I clicked on selective color, and within selective color there's a lot of different options here. So what I want to do is ensure that the photo stock face is active so I can check those tones in real time. Okay, so that's in position. Let's just have a little nudge there, see how we're looking. Down a bit, yeah, that will do the job. Okay, and with the selective color, I like to go to neutrals first. This is where it will have the most impact. I'm going to take down the cyan a little bit. Magenta, yellow, pull the yellow back. Okay, we're getting closer now. It only, with these neutral tones, it only takes the smallest touch. It's easy to go overboard with this. Take the magenta out a little bit. Yellow down a bit more. Magenta down a bit. Yep, we're getting there. I'm going to zoom out a couple. That's already looking a lot better. See if there's anything more we can do. We can go also to the yellows because there's a lot of yellow in the hands, and tweak some of the channel values. So Carlos has a bit more pink in his face, so I'm just going to ramp that up using the yellows color channel. So here we go. Yellow, pull that down a bit more, and we're getting a lot closer now. If the hands are the off tone to the face, you can go to the skin mask. I've used that selection layer again. That's why I like to have them, because it's easy to just load that selection over again. And I'm just going to go for levels just to get a little bit of pop so it matches the lighting of that face. So let's go a little bit like that with the white slider, mid-tone, and then pull the black in just a tiny touch to match the complexion of the photo stock face. That's a lot better. Zooming out, maybe they're a bit too bright. I can pull that opacity down, just get that to match. That's okay. The beard would be casting a bit of a shadow, so I'm going to use my go-to trick for creating a bit of a shadow underneath that beard. The way that I like to do that is a new adjustment layer. That'll be levels once again. I'm going to go for the output slider. I'm going to pull that to the left, and you see things getting darker and darker. Go to the layer stack, maybe change that to multiply, and then you can tweak the opacity of that for the shadow. Now I know that's covering everything, but we'll use the layer mask to selectively bring that back in. So the shadow's at the right intensity, I think. I'm going to go B for brush. The opacity and the flow are just at 100%, nothing too fancy there. I'm going to command and click the pirate body. Make sure the foreground color is set to white, and then with a large soft edge brush, I'm just going to paint downwards and get some shadow going on here. That beard will be casting a bit of a shadow as it goes over. Okay, Command D. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. Yeah, a bit further perhaps. Okay, let's see how that looks. That's pretty good. So we're getting there. The last thing I'm going to do is just maybe tweak these levels on the hands a little bit more. So let's get to this. Let's get the hands levels maybe down a bit. I'm going to do one more trick with these hands. I'm going to command and click on the skin mask. I'm going to command and J, so we've got the skin there. I only want the hands, so I'm going to hit M for marquee and just delete this area here. And the trick that I'm going to do here, I want the hands to match the ruddy intensity of the face. I'm going to use a favorite trick of mine, camera raw filter. And on these hands, simply going to push the clarity just a touch and get a tiny bit of grain on there to get them a bit more photorealistic, because we're using a CG stock element. Okay, I'm gonna before and after. It's just added a bit of finesse and texture to those hands. It's a good go-to trick. Okay, so the hands are now matching the tone of the face. These processes that you've seen here can also be used for other exposed skin areas, for arms, legs, neck areas, all different uses. So that was the basics of head swapping in Photoshop. I'm going to be doing more videos on this topic because you have different angles, you have long hair, you have a lot more techniques and processes for matching skin tones. But this video today will pretty much get you there with most tasks. One thing to keep in mind is the scaling of the head in relation to the body image. You can use the eyes as a point of reference. Bring the opacity down to about 50% for the photo stock head to get that in position. Use the free transform tools, Command and T, Control and T if you're on a Windows, to scale and position as needed. So they're the tips for today. I hope you enjoyed that one, team. If you want to learn more about the hair processing, check out the video on the end card and I'll link you to a full hair walkthrough there if you want to learn more on that one. So that's it for me today, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Catch you at the next video. See you then.